Hello, okay, for those of you returning to the channel, welcome back, and for those of you that are new here, that have just stumbled upon this video, then thank you for joining me, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of the supernatural horror The Conjuring Last Rites, the 9th installment in the Conjuring universe, and the 4th film within the story of Ed and Lorraine Warren, based on these real-life investigations. Now, it's been years since I watched the first two movies, directed by James Wan, but I remember really enjoying them. I remember really liking them, and I've not watched the third movie, The Devil Made Me Do It. I just never got around to watching it. But here we've got the 4th or 9th installment in the Conjuring universe, and The Conjuring Last Rites follows paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren as they travel to Pennsylvania to confront a malevolent force terrorizing the Smurl family's home. So, The Last Rites is directed by a Michael Chaves, and I didn't realise that Michael Chaves had actually already directed quite a few of the installments within the Conjuring universe until I sort of looked into the production of the movie. He's directed The Curse of La Llorona, which I've not seen, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which I've also not seen, and The Nun 2 and Last Rites. Now, I have seen The Nun 2, and I have got a review up for that. Both The Nun 2 and The Last Rites share two elements or two aspects of the movies that I actually found myself really liking and admiring, really, to an extent, and that is from a visual perspective in how these stories are brought to life. From a technical perspective, from how the camera is used to the lighting and just how the story is told through visuals, I found myself just being taken in by that aspect of this movie, just like I was with The Nun 2. I mean, The Nun 2 isn't a great movie, but one of the few aspects that I did like of that movie, or one of the few things that I did like about that movie, was how certain moments and scenes were shot. And it's the same year with Last Rites. I found myself being taken in by how the story was brought to life from a visual perspective, and I really admired it from that perspective. I just really liked its sort of the visual style of the movie, like especially when it comes from the perspective of the Warrens. You've kind of got this kind of orangey hue, and it's almost like sort of the story or the film in those moments is just drenched within within a sunset, you could say. And then you've got the story of the Smurls, this extended working class family in Philadelphia, where you have more of the greys and that cold, wet look of that environment. And I just love how that contrast between the two worlds of the Warrens and the Smurls was brought to life visually. It's done in a way where it does it does to some degree, I suppose, immerses you into the story and into the worlds of these two families. And to just touch back on the camera for a moment, like I said, I really kind of liked or admired really how the camera would be used in certain moments. Like, this is a much more intimate story, I felt, especially between a mother and a daughter, with Lorraine Warren and her daughter, and that connection that's there. And I just found that was elevated. That aspect of the story is elevated through how the camera would be used, especially in the first act, where you'd have these two characters communicating with one another, and just how the camera would be used within those moments. For me, it just kind of really added to the intimacy between these two characters within that moment, and I thought it was done in a very clever way. I really liked how the camera would be used throughout the movie. And again, it's very similar to how I felt with The Nun 2, that was also directed by Michael Chaves. You know, especially when it came to certain moments of horror, I think there are moments that are effective due to how the camera is used and just sort of the overall look of a moment, wherever it be, you know, the lighting, the cinematography and all of that. And so, yeah, from that perspective, from that aspect, that is the one element of this movie, Last Rites, that I found myself really liking and really appreciating. And you've got the gorgeous score by Benjamin Wallfish. Again, one of the strongest elements of this movie, and another element of this movie that I found myself really admiring is the score by Benjamin Wallfish. He has easily become one of my favourite composers in recent years. And I just, again, you know, like every other composer within the Conjuring movies, especially the first two, because they're the movies that I have watched. And, you know, their scores do a fantastic job at capturing the essence and the vibe and even the sound to a degree of movies like The Exorcist. And like that piece of music when you've got the title card where the Conjuring just sort of appears, that piece of music always gives me chills. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I think, again, like I said, Benjamin Wallfish here does a wonderful job at creating a really great score. But unfortunately, whatever it be, you know, the visual style, how the story is told from a visual perspective, to the lighting, to the score, none of those elements saves this movie for me personally. And when it comes to my praises, that's where it ends. Unfortunately, this was another one of those experiences that has a lot of potential. The ingredients are all there, but it unfortunately doesn't fully come together or doesn't fully come to life to create a truly effective, emotional, chilling experience, one that lands an emotional punch. Because I do believe that this story, this experience is designed, it's engineered to sort of really immerse you into what is a very human story, one that is a very emotional story that would also give you chills. And unfortunately, none of those pieces, none of the ingredients really come together to create that experience. But it's frustrating because it's there. It is kind of there. Like I said, there were already aspects and elements to this movie that I found myself really liking. And as a result, it was a frustrating experience because it just was not fully coming to life. There was a spark, but it was not igniting. In fact, I found Last Rite to be quite a slog to sit through. And one of the only few things that kept me locked in or engaged was Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as Ed and Lorraine Warren. Like, they are brilliant at bringing these characters to life. I enjoy seeing them bring these characters to life. And they are one of the only few things among the other sort of elements that I've already mentioned that did kind of keep me locked in or engaged to a degree. But especially the middle half of this movie, the second act, I just found it very painful to sit through. It just failed at kind of weaving in the stories of the Warrens and the Smurls together to create something that felt consistent, that felt coherent, that felt natural and organic. It just felt like I never got enough time to really get immersed within the family of the Smurls, and I found it frustrating as I really enjoyed those moments that we did get with them. I just felt like because they had a focus on these both families, the two stories of these families and what they are going through didn't really fully come to life and really connect. And even though you can see what they're attempting to do here with this story and sort of how these two families end up meeting, it just kind of really lacked sort of the emotional pull and the emotional punch that I felt like this aspect of the story required. And I just found myself really wanting to sort of know more and sort of really be immersed more within sort of the world and the story of the Smurls. And I just felt like for the story to have worked, maybe there should have been sacrifices in how much focus they did spend on either one of their stories. It just kind of felt obvious that they had a story to tell when it came to the Warrens, but they didn't really have one with the Smurls other than sort of bringing this, you know, extended working class family to life in Philadelphia. And I just loved the dynamic between this family. Again, like I said, it's very relatable, and I felt like, you know, there was definitely a story there, but it just also felt like the writers weren't that interested. Like, you could tell that they were setting this family up so we could get somewhat emotionally involved, but it was really there, so, you know, to set up that kind of the final act with the Warrens when they come in, you know, and do their thing. And that's just unfortunately how it felt. It ended up feeling just a little bit too cold. And that's not to say that I didn't enjoy the story of the Warrens with Ed and Lorraine and their daughter. In fact, the presence of the Warrens, you know, played by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, are the reason why I was always somewhat engaged to a degree throughout this entire experience. But it's how their story eventually collides with the Smurls that just felt a little clunky in its execution. The drama from both families and what they are experiencing within the horror never truly comes to life in a way that is effectively chilling or emotionally satisfying. And like I said, it kind of all felt just a little bit too mechanical, clanky and cold. But there are elements there that I just found myself really appreciating and admiring, like how these two different worlds are brought to life visually. And the horror really didn't work for me. Like, this movie isn't scary. It didn't give me goosebumps. There is actually only one effective moment in this movie that was, you know, I thought to be, you know, very effective, and it showed the potential of where or what this movie could have been. And for those of you that have seen the movie already will hopefully understand or know the moment that I'm referring to here. And it's the moment in the basement where you've got the mother of the Smurls and she goes down into the basement, and you've just got kind of like this one shot where it kind of pans around and you can kind of see this sort of figure in the darkness. And again, it's going back to how this movie was shot, just like with The Nun 2. This is one of those moments that I'm talking about with the way in which the camera is used. It's a very effective moment. It's creepy because of how the camera is used, and that you just see the right amount within that moment. Like, it's a moment that I'm grinning, actually, because I just really liked how that little moment played out. And it is a very brief moment, but it's also frustrating because you don't really get, well, for me anyway, personally, I never really got another one of those moments in this movie, even right up until the climax. You know, there isn't a moment that I found, you know, incredibly chilling or disturbing or scary. And that's where this film, unfortunately, it really failed at. It really failed at effectively bringing an emotional human story to life, as well as the horror within this story. And a lot of that, I felt, is due to sort of the clunkiness of how this story was weaved together, how it was sort of brought together. So I felt Last Rites is an experience that is designed, or it's relying on you to really get wrapped up emotionally within both stories of the Warrens and the Smurls, to be immersed into a very human story between a mother, father and daughter, and the bad luck of a family who find themselves tormented by some demonic entity. The ingredients are there, and there are times that I was just admiring what they were attempting, whether it be technically, you know, with the camera, the use of the camera and the lighting, from a visual storytelling perspective, or just the story in general with these two families and how their worlds are brought to life. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite come together. It doesn't fully come to life or take off. And I just found that incredibly frustrating. Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, you know, they are the standouts. There is something about how they bring these characters to life. There's a charm there, and I just enjoy sort of watching what they're doing. I enjoy seeing them sort of bringing these characters to life, and they are the strongest element of this experience. I mean, everyone gives an okay performance here. And it goes back to what I was saying about this film not really being in that, you know, it's not really insulting. It's not a mess. It's not an absolute failure. You know, this is a watchable movie, but it's a very flat experience where in moments, you know, you might get that odd blip where it's like, oh, I like that, or oh, I like what they are trying to do there, or it's like, oh, I like what they're trying to do with that character's story. but it's not consistent enough, and it just ends up losing the energy and the momentum that I felt like the movie needed, where it sort of built, you know. So when you sort of, as you go into that kind of the climax, into the third act, you know, you're going to get one of those moments that, you know, we always get in these movies, and it just kind of falls flat. Like, the movie ends on a very flat note, but that's because it wasn't effective at bringing that kind of the human story as well as the horror to life in a way that just sort of emotionally sucked me into the story. Like, I was there and I was immersed to a degree, but that was because of all these other little elements that I kind of found myself really appreciating. But as one whole experience, it just didn't come together to kind of really fully immerse me and fully compel me, you could say, into this story. So yeah, enough rambling on from me. They are my thoughts on The Conjuring Last Rites, and I will be giving The Conjuring Last Rites They are my thoughts on The Conjuring Last Rites, but what do you guys think? Have you seen it yet? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then please let me know in the comments below and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. My next review will be for The Long Walk. I'm really looking forward to checking that out. It's the latest Stephen King adaptation. I've never read the book, but I'm really intrigued by its premise, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. You've also got my spoiler-filled review of episode 6 of Alien Earth. That will also be arriving probably Sunday, Monday the latest. It's a show that I've been really enjoying. I might even say love. But, you know, we've got a few more episodes. We've got a couple more episodes left, and considering that, you know, I was very much on the fence when it came to this show. Like, I wasn't really on board with the whole idea of it being based on Earth a couple of years before the Ellen Ripley story and all of that. It has won me over. I'm really liking what Noah Hawley has done here with its story. Noah Hawley was more successful at giving us an effective prequel to Alien than Ridley Scott was with both Prometheus and Covenant. Even though I admired aspects of those two movies, Noah Hawley's actually been more effective, and he's actually added the mystery back to the Alien so far. So yeah, that's it from me for now, and just another massive thank you to everyone that's connected to the channel or is connecting to the channel. It means the world to me, whatever it be, liking, subscribing, commenting. It means so much, and it will always overwhelm me that so many of you do want to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on and pronounce things incorrectly. So yeah, that's it from me for now. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll be catching you guys soon.